Welcome to the Church on the Hill Sermon of the Week. We hope you enjoy this message from our Sunday morning service. If you have any questions about the message or about the church, or would like to know more about who we are, please feel free to contact our church office through the contact information located here on the website.
Be a blessing. Well, through some mutual friends that I have, actually his wife's cousins, right? A young man was directed to my path, and he sent me a text, called me on the phone, and said he loves to text. He doesn't respond very well, but he does text, and we play phone tag, text tag. We kind of get there, right? But I'm just as bad sometimes, so I'm really making fun of him. But this guy came to my office and said, "Hey, Pastor Darian and Vicky recommended me to come and talk to you." When I met this young man, there was just something in my heart that just said, you know what? This is who I believe in. I believe in this generation because a young man that's got a degree, now I'm not going to hold it against him that he's an Aggie. He even admitted it's a cult, so if you're an Aggie, you know what we're talking about. I mean, it is a cult. Did you watch their football games? It's a cult. And all you Longhorns, don't get up and leave the room because this guy's an Aggie, right? And I'm an LSU fan, so I just like to stir that up a little. But can I tell you that a lot, you're right, a lot. But when I met this young man, when I met Andrew Mangum, I just said, gosh, there's just something of the Lord in me, something in him, and something that just resonated in my heart because of what he feels like God has called him to do. And I just said, you know what? I want you to come and I want you to speak to our church. And I want you to share your passion and your vision because, and I'll maybe spoiler alert, he'll probably tell you this, but over 70% of Christian young people that go to college never continue with the Lord. That they go to college and they fall away from Christ and they fall away from the kingdom. And this young man has made it his lot in life. He feels the Lord has called him to be a campus missionary. So Andrew Mangum, would you come? Would you guys give the Lord praise for Andrew? I'll let him introduce his lovely wife.
I think, can y'all hear me pretty good on this thing? Is this good? Okay, sweet. Yeah, I'm good to go. Wow, that was an awesome introduction. I feel like I don't even need to talk. I can just sit down. That's awesome. Yeah, man, y'all's church is phenomenal. I was getting blown away. I just, I even feel really honored and really thankful to just be a part of this, It feels really cool. So I'm gonna pray real fast and then, we'll get into it. Yeah, dear God, man, thank you so much for this time. God, I thank you that you're present, you're close, that you're crazy real. So would your peace, would your presence come, joy, even freedom, would you really fill the room? And would you get us pumped up, Lord? In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Okay, so this is my beautiful wife and I. She is actually a huge part of the reason why I'm a believer, so that's cool. We don't have the normal a relationship process. That's a little bit, it's a crazy story, long story, but she's really phenomenal. And she's been super supportive throughout this whole thing, probably the most supportive person. So it's really, really sweet. So I planned to kind of share with you guys a little bit more about me and then talk about the missionary work that I'm doing. But during worship, the Lord totally flipped the script on me. So I was gonna share a testimony if I had enough time. But I feel like he's even man, Andrew, if you trust me, just share the testimony first. And I was oh, okay. Here we go. So I don't have any slides for this, so this one can just stay up for now. And then So I'm in a season of raising support right now to be a full-time missionary to A&M. So it looks like me meeting with a lot of people and kind of traveling all over the state of Texas. So a couple weeks ago, I was driving, I was supposed to leave sooner than I did. I was going to drive down to South Houston and meet with a couple people. And I'm not super great with logistics, and so I'm running a little bit behind. And I have a video chat meeting, through Skype that I was hoping to be in Houston for to start, right? So I'm driving down and I get the notification on my phone, this meeting's going to start in 15 minutes. And I'm still an hour and a half from Houston. I'm crap, what am I gonna do? So I pull up a quick Audible, and like this town called like Katy is nearby, and so I drive this like really, like all this like super strange, right? The whole process of getting there, I'm driving like on all these like back roads, and I'm like, man, is this like really actually taking me to a town? And like I'm getting into Katy, and like the guy calls me, I'm supposed to meet with, he's like, hey, are you ready to go? And I was like, crap, like where am I supposed to meet? And like McDonald's like pops up, and I'm like, oh, free Wi-Fi, like I'm in, you know? And so like pull into McDonald's, run in real fast, we have like the video call, it's like really awesome. But all this feels like, man, like normally I'm like right on time from meetings, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, like I'm not great with logistics, but I'm working really hard in the season to do that. It's like, why is all this craziness going on? Well, I drank in a lot of coffee that morning, and so I like ran to the bathroom real quick after the meeting, you know, because coffee does that. And as soon as I walk into the bathroom, I realize exactly like why God had like sent me to Katy. Like it was like all ordained, right? Like no accidental things are happening, right? It's like awesome. It's like so true. So I walk into the bathroom, and it's like a smaller McDonald's bathroom, you know, like one sink and like one toilet, and then like so I guess like a urinal and a toilet. And there's like an older black man like washing his clothes in the sink. And it's like immediately became clear to me this guy's like homeless, you know, and he's like washing his clothes in the McDonald's like thing, and this is during a cold snap too. And so it's like a couple weeks ago, maybe like 3 weeks ago, when it started getting like really cold, it's like when this is happening. So I see this guy, and immediately my heart breaks for him, not in a place of like, oh, I feel really sorry for this guy, but I even feel like the Lord is like really urging me, like, no, like just go like love on this guy. This is why I sent you here, you know. And so I go to the bathroom, and I come out, and like I kind of like, he's like at the sinks, like walk up next to him. He's like, oh man, you need to wash your hands. And I was like, no, like I just want to be with you, you know. And so I start asking him about his life, and he starts telling me like kind of like the story of his life, you know, like pretty quickly. And he talks about how he got like injured, like his back is hurt, you know, and so he can't work. And I was like, oh dude, like let me pray for that real fast. So I pray for his back, and he's like, whoa, that's like crazy. He's like, dude, let me like pray for my leg. My leg hurts too. And so I pray for his leg, and he's like, oh yeah. And then I pray for his shoulder, and he's like, man, I don't know where you come from. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. I was like, man, it's just Jesus. Like Jesus loves you, know, like this is really cool. And so I'm getting to know this guy, and even I feel like the Lord has put him on. He's like, serve this guy however you can. And I'm like, all right, like that sounds good, Lord. And so the guy's like, man, like I'm really hungry. And I was like, oh, opportunity to serve, I got it. I was like, dude, I'll go buy you food. Like keep washing your clothes, I'll be right back. So I ordered him like a ton of food. I tried to order like too much food so he can't eat it all, so he's gonna have leftovers, you know. So while I was getting ready, I go back and I keep talking to him. And I realized this guy only has 2 pairs of clothes. He's got a pair of jeans and a pair of shorts, and like a McGrady basketball jersey, and then like a jacket on top of that, right? And so he's in his shorts and a jacket with no shirt on because he's washing his pant in his McGrady shirt. And so he finished washing the shirt, and so I grab it and I start like hand drying, you know. So I'm starting to enter into this process with this guy. And then the food gets done, and so I'm like, hey, like, dude, your food is done, like, let me wash these clothes for you, you know? And he's like, are you sure, man? I was like, yeah, dude, like, I want to do this. And so he goes outside and he's eating, so I'm in the bathroom washing these clothes, right? Like, I'm entering into, like, the messiness of this guy's life, like, his brokenness, his hardship, like, I get to step in, and so as I'm washing his clothes, like, it's crazy how dirty they are. Like, you kind of, like, run them under the water till they fill up with water, and then you, like, push on him to force the water out, and like dirt is like rushing out of his clothes. So I have to pick his clothes up, wait for like this muddy water to drain out, and like repeat this process, right? So I'm just like, my heart starts breaking for this guy. And then people are coming in and out of the bathroom while this is happening, right? And so they see me and they think this is me washing my clothes. So they identify me as homeless, and I start seeing the way they're like interacting with me. And it's kind of like this like, dude, look, let me get to the sink, you know, like I'm just gonna duck in here, and like they're like really ashamed of me, and they don't want to like acknowledge that like I'm homeless or that I'm in a rough situation, right? So they're just kind of like ducking their heads and like almost like refusing to even look at me. And it's like, there's like so many things that happen in this experience. So it's like, man, like we cannot afford to be Christians, like duck our heads and like refuse to like enter into these things with people. It's like, oh, this is huge, okay? And so I realize the way these people are treating me, and it's like this isn't affecting me too much. Like I'm a pretty confident guy overall, and so I'm not like taking this personally. But I realize like what this guy, his day-to-day life is, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And so like I'm like on the verge of tears, like washing this guy's clothes, and the Lord starts speaking to me like what He thinks about this guy and how He sees this guy. And He's like spoke like very clearly like a word for him, and I'm like, okay. And He's like, just like hold on to this. And I was like, okay. So the guy finishes eating. He like fell asleep up there. So he comes back in. It's been probably like 30 minutes. I've got like just about all his clothes washed except for his jacket. So I take my coat off and I give him my coat to put on so I can wash his coat, and we're talking a little bit more. And then kind of in the process of this time too, the manager comes in, acts like he's like checking the stall or whatever, and then walks up to me. He's like, hey, make sure you don't make a mess. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, dude, like, that's like crazy insensitive. It's like if this is who I am, right? If these are my 2 pairs of clothes and I'm washing them, it's not like I've got a whole lot of options at this point. You know what I mean? He's like, don't make a mess in my store. And I'm like, oh, like my heart breaks to this guy. Like he doesn't know who he is, and like it's like sad. And so we start walking out of the store. It's crazy. This guy wanted to dry all of his clothes in the hand dryer. There's no way that works on like a jacket, like jean jacket. It's not going to dry out, So he said there's a washateria nearby, and I'm like, all right, we'll go to the washateria, no problem. So as we're walking out, we're leaving the store, and this guy, he's like, man, like everybody started making fun of me in there, and like I guess like the workers have been talking about how he's like washing his clothes, and then how I went in and started washing his clothes. And this guy starts getting mad, and he's talking about like all this trash like they were saying to him, and he's getting heated, and something like comes over me, like this boldness of the Lord, right? So I grab this guy that I've known for like 45 minutes. I grab him by my jacket and like pull his face to mine. And it's like super intense. Like that's like a fight. Like I'm lucky this guy didn't deck me, It's like that should have happened probably. But I look him like dead in the face and I'm like, no one gets to tell you how worthy you are. No one gets to tell you like what your worth is. I was like, God told me this. He said that you are no more or less than any person in there. He's like, he chose you and that's all that matters. And so from now on, nobody gets to determine your worth, right? It's like crazy. So I'm like, and this guy's like, whoa. It's like, I kind of like let him go and like this, like all of the anger just like melted off of me. He's like, whoa, man, you're right. Like, that's awesome. And then I just grabbed him and I hugged him and I was like, man, like you're chosen. Like I see you and I choose you and like you're worthy. And so it's like so powerful. So I have like meetings in Houston, but I feel like the Lord just asked me to keep spending time with this guy. So I reschedule those meetings. Like I'm like, hey, like I'm just with my friend in Houston, like, or like in Katy, like I can't make it down yet. So we end up spending like 3 hours together. We go to the washateria and just hanging out, and like I'm just this guy starts talking to me about Jesus, right? And so we put his clothes in the dryer, and then he tells me like, hey, like, dude, can we go buy some socks? Like I don't have any socks. And the first response in my heart was like, well, is this guy trying to take advantage of me? Like he's asking me to buy like more stuff for him. And then the Lord spoke to me in like a real firm, gentle rebuke. He said like, do you not trust me? Like, do you not trust to like sacrifice to give? And I was like, oh, okay, we'll go buy socks, man. So we go to the dollar store and I'm just thinking like, this guy doesn't have socks. It's wintertime. He sleeps on the cold, hard ground. Like, how is he alive? Like this is crazy. So I get to even like keep like serving this guy. All this awesome stuff happens. Like he's like, man, like, can I just get a Bible? Like every time I get a little bit of the word in me, like everything changes. It's like awesome. And I was like, well, yeah, dude, I'm gonna buy you a Bible. This is awesome. Like it's like they have like it's like $1 at the Dollar General. It's like this is like the best dollar I've ever spent. And so like all this stuff is happening. It's so awesome. The Lord like downloads information into my brain about how to stay warm with plastic bags during the wintertime. It's like plastic bags are everywhere. And so he literally like gives me pictures of how to like put plastic bags on your feet and hands, like how to use them to keep your whole body warm. So I'm like teaching this guy how to be homeless effectively and survive, right? It's like crazy. Like what is happening? And he's like nuts, And so like overall I spent like less than $50 on this guy, about 2 to 3 hours with him. And so I'm like, well, like I probably got to get down to Houston, man. So I drive him back to like his spot. He's got like clean clothes on and he still has like my jacket on. And so as we're driving, I just put my hand on the back of his neck and I'm like, man, like I just want you to know, like I'm proud of you. And he just starts crying and he's like, man, this is crazy. He's like, you don't know how much this changes everything. He said like, last night I was laying on the ground and it's cold and my body hurts. And I was like, man, like I'm done, like I'm ready to like end this thing. And then he heard God say like, just give me one more day. And he was like, all right, Lord, I'll give you one more day. And then he walked into the McDonald's and started taking care of me. He's like, you don't know how much this changes everything. And then the Lord told me that he was going to bring that guy out of homelessness so that he could bring other people out of homelessness as well. And so it's like, oh my gosh, like all this stuff is going on. I'm like, what is happening? And so I only have like one winter jacket. It's the jacket this guy has on. I got it at the YMCA of the Rockies when I worked there for a summer for like this like leadership training thing that I did through our church. It's like my favorite jacket. is warm. It's like this thick, warm, like awesome jacket. And this guy has like a thin jean jacket and he sleeps on the floor and it's wintertime. And so I'm just like looking at this guy and I realized like, how could I walk away from this guy without giving him my jacket? You know, this is crazy, you know? So like, I'm like, man, like I want you to have my jacket, you know, like this is my favorite jacket. And so it means a lot to me. So it's like important that like I give this to you, you know? And he's like, whoa, dude. He's like, man, thank you so much. And he kind of sits there. He's like, dude, this jacket is so warm. He's like, but I know like 2 other guys that really want the jacket I have, so I'll be able to go and give it to them. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Like you have 2 pairs of clothes and as soon as you get an extra, you're trying to give away the rest? Like, that's not what we do. You know, like, we're like, oh great, now I have 2 jackets. Like I'm gonna be extra warm, you know? But like this guy, as soon as he gets something, he's immediately giving away. It's like, this is amazing. Like, who is this guy, you know? So like, dude, just God directed me so much about this thing. And it's like such a sweet experience because like I'm support raising full time right now. So that like I can raise my monthly support and then go and like do full time ministry. It's like, I haven't had a lot of opportunities to do ministry and it's kind of like how I structured my life. And so like this like interaction with this guy just felt like so powerful. And so even I feel like the Lord, and I want to tentatively do this because I don't know like any of you guys, right? And I don't feel like, but I feel like even the Lord is like asking me like what would it look like if we like, instead of, like there's kind of like 2 things. It's like instead of having the mindset of like, oh man, like if God directly tells me I'll go help this person in need, right, that I see like kind of in front of me, that I have access to help, like what if instead of a mindset of like, if God told me I'll go, what if that shifted to like, unless God tells me directly not to, like I'm gonna go serve this person. And it's like how much change could actually happen if we like are willing to sacrifice a couple hours or like a couple bucks like to really help people. It's like legitimately this guy's life could have totally transformed, you know? Like I haven't heard from him since then. I gave him my number and so like we'll see. Like I hope he calls me, you know? But it's like literally at least this guy had hope for a little bit longer, you know? Like it's crazy. And so it's like, yeah, like what if we just like sacrifice? Like what if we like just like move towards that, you know, and like started restructuring our mind to like really serve people with like the crazy amount of like extra we have. You know, I called my wife after and I was like, again, on the verge of tears. And I'm like, it's like, babe, like, I don't care like what we're going through. Like, at least we have socks, you know, like this is crazy. Like we have a house full of things, you know, like an apartment full of things in College Station. And this guy didn't have socks. Like, it wrecked me. It's like really, really humbling. So I don't know how to smoothly transition to my story after that. It's really been on my heart a lot, so I want to share with you guys. But yeah, so my story looks kind of like, it's probably really similar to a lot of people. So I grew up in a Christian home. Both my parents were believers. They went to church. But they got divorced when I was 4. And so kind of in response to that, I was like, oh, like a God of reconciliation, I'll pray to receive Christ and they'll get back together. This will totally work, you know? So I prayed to receive Christ when I was 4, hoping my parents would get back together, and they didn't, and so that kind of left me in like a strange place. So I kept going to church and like doing the Christian things, but really the reality inside of my heart was it was like extremely selfish and like counter to the gospel, you know, like so selfish. Like my mom and I would fight all the time about how like legitimately I didn't even think about other people. She's like, how can you be like so inconsiderate? And it's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You know, like I don't know how to be like, what do you mean like inconsiderate? You know, like there's just not a grid for what it meant to like care or think about or like really even consider other people. So like really intense. My junior and senior year of high school, it was like really coming to like an extreme peak to where every person I came in contact with, every situation I was in was like literally everything was about me. So it's like, okay, like if I can be friends with this person so that it increases my social status or I can feel better about myself or I can get this thing from them, then that's why I'll be their friend. But if there's nothing to gain, why would I be their friend? You know, so it's like this super intense thing of like, I'm going to use all these people around me because that's the point of them being in my life, right? For me to get something from them. It's crazy intense. So actually, my junior year of high school, halfway through my junior year, I met my wife, and this is crazy. I didn't believe that God could speak to people at that time. But the first time I ever saw Jasmine, God spoke to me and said, this is going to be your wife. And I'm a junior in high school, right? And so I'm like rattled. You know, it's like, dude, this is crazy. I'm like intimidated to talk to a girl for the first time in my life. Like, this is crazy. So we had like a potluck afterwards, and so she called me over, like asked me a question. I walked over, and she asked me a question. I don't even remember what it was, but I was like so nervous that I just like looked at my feet, like probably like rubbed my pants, and then walked away, like not even said anything, right? It's like super awkward start. Yeah, I was really bold and courageous in high school. Yeah, it's a good start to our relationship, right? And so the Lord used her really powerfully. For the next year and a half, we dated. While I was in Wichita Falls, so I graduated out of high school in Wichita Falls, so we dated for the next year and a half. The first year of that, Jasmine had a conviction that she was going to marry a man of God, and she was really in love with the Lord, and clearly I wasn't, And so every 2 weeks, like clockwork, she would like get convicted that this isn't a man of God, I'm going to break up with her. And so like every 2 weeks for the first year of us like dating, she broke up with me like 21 times. I kept track. It was crazy, right? So like it's crazy tumultuous start. And that was like one of the huge things that like, it's crazy. The fact that we are married is like a miracle. It's like, what is going on? So it's like, okay, you want me to be a man of God. I don't even know what that looks like, but I feel like kind of open, right? And so that really opened my heart going into college. Well, crazy thing is, so I went to her church the first time, met her that first time I went. Halfway through the next week, I arbitrarily decided, it was such a random decision on my part. I decided I'm only going to A&M, and I'm only going to go to A&M if I get a full ride. I was like, if I don't get a full ride, I'll just go to the oil fields. It's like what everyone from my high school does. I've done manual labor since I'm 13. Like, I'll be effective at this, and I'm like smarter than the average guy, so I feel like I'll be all right, Very prideful, right? You can sense the pride in that, and like, but I didn't tell anyone I wanted to get a full ride, because if I didn't, then people would like laugh at me, and so there's all that. But I go to Jasmine's church a second time, and they're having this conference. All these people come from out of town. This lady from Dallas comes up to me and says, after the service, she said, God told me he was going to give you a full ride to A&M. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, again, I don't think God speaks to people, so like, thanks, that's really nice, but I don't believe you. But at the same time, a lot of pride, man, a lot of pride. God had to break me down. So at the same time, though, it's like, what are the odds that like, I decide I'm only going to Texas A&M and only for a full ride, and this lady comes up to me and tells me that God is going to give me a full ride. Like, what are the odds that happens in the same week, And so I applied to A&M and a couple other schools, like get into other schools, but I like turned them down and like even turned down their scholarship offers because none of them were full rides, So I actually moved down to A&M. This is crazy. Again, like not great with logistics. I'm really not. So I moved down to A&M, 5 hours south from Wichita Falls, with no idea how to pay for school. They haven't gotten back to me about scholarships or grants at all. So I move in with no idea how to pay for school. And I don't even realize that until my parents drop me off. And they're like, good luck, kid, figure it out. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I've got to pay 13 grand in a week. Like, that's a productive week if I've ever had one, Like, there's no way this happens. It's crazy. So I'm a really insecure guy, really fearful overall. And so, like, kind of, that's like the root of this, like, really intense selfishness, right? If I'm really insecure, then I've got to respond with really intense selfishness so no one sees this insecurity, right? So all of that fear, all of that insecurity hits me like a wall all at one time when I'm in my dorm, totally alone, and like I become paralyzed. So the first week, like I'm on campus before school starts, I am terrified to leave my dorm. So I just cry and eat crackers for a week straight. Like terrified, cannot leave, like it's miserable. And like, I think it's like, even God was probably like really breaking down my heart more like in that week, So I get to the end of this week and I check my account to see like, man, at this point, I'll go back on my word. Like I want to stay here. If there's emergency loans I have to take out, like I'm going to do what I have to do to stay. Whenever I look at my account, I see that all of these scholarships that I had applied for, I got denied all of them. Like none of them came through. It's just crazy. But all these other grants and scholarships that I had never even heard of fell in my lap, so much so they paid for all of my school, like all of my living expenses, and then I had enough money left over to save some and like send a little bit home to my mom. Like it was crazy. And I'm like, whoa. Like I got the Aggie parking ticket scholarship. Like what is that? Like is that even a thing? Like think about that. So like students park on campus and they get tickets and then they like, oh yeah, we'll just take all this money and put it in a scholarship fund and give it back to them. Like I don't even know that's actually a thing. I just wonder if like even the Lord is just like messing with me, like putting money in my account. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy. So, yeah, it's nuts. So I'm sitting here. This feels like a very like humbling moment, right? Because there's probably a reasonable explanation for all these scholarships, but I don't have it, and I definitely can't take credit for like any of it. You know, it's not because of my grades or like any accolades that I can claim credit to that any of this money came in. And so I sit here and I'm like, man, like maybe this is from God, you know? And I feel like even in the moment, the Lord gives me like a picture, like two paths that I can walk down. And I'll be really vulnerable with you guys. My goal coming to college was to continue in this place of like extreme selfishness, right? And being totally consumed with myself. And I wanted to come to school and I wanted to like party and chase girls, right? That's like what I was about. That's like what I had built my persona around. While me and Jasmine are still dating, so she's back home and I'm just not going to tell her about any of this, right? So it's like a super intense place that I'm in. So the Lord is like, you can keep going down that path, but you have to like stop claiming that you're a Christian. Or you can stop dead in your tracks and like see if I'm real. And I was like, oh man, like this feels like thinking about this feels like a no-brainer. You know, like if God is a God that really gives out full rides, like why wouldn't I want to know him? And so I was like, all right. So it's a pretty good reason, you know. It's like I was in a dark place, man. The Lord had to grab my heart. And so like I was like, all right, I'll take one step in this direction. And like if you show me you're real, like I'll follow you, you know, like I'm in. If this is who you are, I'm in. And so I didn't walk in this at all. Like I just took like one step over here, you know, and the Lord like really responded to that. The only other person I knew in College Station was this girl I'd met a couple times in Wichita Falls. She just happened to remember me and come up to me in the middle of Walmart where there's like thousands of students, like crazy day at Walmart, you know. She remembers me and my name and has the courage to come up to me and like ask me to start coming to a church with her. And I was like, whoa, like, sure, I'm looking for a church, even though I really wasn't. It's like the classic like Southern Christian, like, oh yeah, I'm looking for a church, but like really I'm not, you know. And so like I have freedom, you know, I don't really want to go. But man, even God was like really faithful with her because she started inviting me for like 3 weeks straight to everything our church did. Like everything, like small groups, church, hangouts, like special events for 3 weeks. And for 3 weeks straight, I totally ignored her and lied about not getting her messages and all this stuff, right? So I said like, all right, God, like I'll see if you're real. But really I didn't mean it. But like the Lord had grace in me and allowed me like 3 weeks of like grace to like start walking in this, right? And so finally I crack and I'm like, all right, I'll go to your stupid church if you just leave me alone, you know? And so I go, and the first time I go to this church, it's like, dude, there's something really different about these people. So I get to meet her and her small group. We go out to lunch afterwards, and as I'm eating lunch with these people, I realize that there's like something really different about them, but they're also really weird. And so I'm like, you know what? I tried it. I'm not in. Like, not this church, you know, like maybe another one. But the home group leader meets up with me later that week, and man, whenever we meet up, he like, it's like there's something different about these people. And like, they're like a little bit weird. And I don't know how to put my finger on it. But at the same time, like as I'm meeting with this guy, like these deep things inside of me are starting to stir. And he's asking me questions that no one has ever asked me before. Like he's really pressing into my life. Like where is like my vision? Like what's the vision for my future? And like where is God in that, you know? And like what does it look like for me to like know God? And like all these things. And I'm like, dude, like I'm a total stranger to you and like kind of a little bit of a jerk. Like I've got this like jerk persona going, you know, and like why do you care about me? Like it doesn't make any sense. But it's like really awesome at the same time, really sweet. At the same time, like something deep in my heart was like desiring this thing. And so I was like, all right, if David is this cool, you know, I'll go check out his small group and see what's going on. A little bit weird, but also cool. And so whenever I go, we meet in like people in our home groups. We meet in like each other's apartments. So I go to this random person's apartment full of random people I've never met before. And they're super friendly and it's like really awesome. And then this guy pulls out a guitar and they all start singing worship songs. And I'm like, okay, like, man, I don't know about this. Like, this is weird, man. Like just random, like what did I get myself into? And I had gotten a ride there. So there wasn't a way for me to get out and leave, you know? I'm trapped. And then they start praying out loud as if God is real and he's like hearing them and responding. And I'm like, okay, definitely never seen my peers do this when their parents aren't forcing them to. Like, what is going on? Like, why are these people doing this, you know? Like, so like these like paradigms that I've built around like what it means to be a Christian are getting shattered this whole time, right? And then we break up into small groups of just guys and girls. So there's like 2 or 3 guy groups, 2 or 3 girl groups. And I'm in a group with David and with Ruben. And they start sharing these like really deep and like raw like intense things about themselves, right? Like doubting God and like struggling physically and all these things. And I'm like shocked. I'm like, dude, what is going on? Like, why would you guys talk about this? This is church, man. Like, I'm good, you're good, we're all good, we go home. Like, this is what I had like built as like the idea of church, you know? And they're like wrecking this, you know, and they're being real and transparent. And so as they're sharing, I'm kind of like bracing myself, you know, like waiting for them to start like rebuking each other and like really smacking each other with the word in like the midst of all this craziness. But instead they like pray for each other and they're like really loving and like building each other up as men of God. I'm like, whoa, like what is happening? And so they both kind of finish like sharing and talking about their week. And then they just pause and look at me. And it's like, oh, now it's my turn to go. So, oh, shoot, like it's getting intense, you know, like there's like a response required of me here, you know? And so I was like, man, this kind of what happened in my head is like, either God's real or he's not. Like, I don't have anything to lose, you know? And it's like, if I'm actually going to say that I'm about this God thing, like, and like I've taken kind of like 2 or 3 steps in this direction, like I'm an all or nothing guy anyways. Like I'm going to see like what happens. Like I'm just going to jump and see what happens. And so I show these guys like the reality of like the darkness and the ugliness of my heart. And I kind of like lay it all out before them. And then I get done like sharing everything. I'm like, oh, what was I doing? You know, like this feels like a bad decision, you know? Like now I'm like super vulnerable in front of these people. Like I feel naked, like this is bad. But then they like grab me, like emotionally, they grab me, like wrap me up and like a hug, and, like draw me in, like just the way they like responded to me. And they're basically like, man, like we see you. And we see the brokenness inside of you, and we like choose you, and we accept you, and like we like want to be friends with you still. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I know how broken I am. Like the reality is I know where I'm at, and like it's like super intense, and y'all are still choosing me. So I jumped in. After I left that home group, and I was like, dude, these people are weird. I'll admit it, and I don't know what's going on, but they have something that like is incredible, and I want this. So I started going to all the small group things. Me and David started meeting up a ton. Like legitimately, we probably met up like 20 hours a week together. It was crazy. Like this guy is on staff of the church. So he's got like, this is what he does, like meeting up with college students that are broken like me. You know, it's like awesome. And I start seeing the way this guy's living, like front to back. Like he can't hide anything from me because we spend like total time together. You know, it's like, there's no way for him to put on this like false persona of like being a Christian. Like this guy is living it. You know, I get to see the way he handles like success and failure and like sin and victory. And like every step of the way, he's like running after the Lord. And it's like phenomenal. You know, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, dude, I don't know what this guy, I think it's real for this guy. You know, so I get to the end of first semester and I look back over these like really powerful relationships that I built with like the guys in home group. And I was like, man, the way these like really broken people are loving me is like exceptional. And I think the only way to explain it is that they are not loving me with their love, but they've like received something from God and they're like loving me like with his love, you know? And so it clicks, like all of the seeds that my parents had sown like my entire life, like parents, you're doing a great job. Like keep at it, you know, it's like it's gonna bear fruit eventually. Like, all of this stuff that they had invested in me like clicked at the end of this semester as I'm reflecting back on it. And I realized that God is crazy real, you know? And he's like made himself crazy real to me through how these people have like treated me. And I was like, all right, like I'm in, you know, like God, you've like proven to me how real you are. I'm in. So I surrendered my life to the Lord after that semester. And going into my second semester, David knew me probably better than anyone else did. And he said, Andrew, what if all the love and life change that you've received this far isn't just about you? And I was like, oh my, what do you, like my entire life is determined by the question what I can get, you know, like what do you mean? And so he doesn't give me an answer. This question keeps rolling around in my head for weeks. And it will not leave me alone. And so as I'm thinking about this over and over again, I start seeing signs of like pain and suffering and like brokenness in like the students in the classes like around me, like my friends in my classes around me. I start catching glimpses of these things. And then I realize like, oh my gosh, when we come into college, there's like all these questions about who we are and what we're gonna be about and like why. And I think even college students are really looking for something that's true, something that's real that they can invest themselves in, right? And so kind of in a place with all these questions, like we come in, but then there's like all these pressures, like academic pressure and all this stuff that's like weighing down on us. The college experience, right? Like partying and like all this crazy stuff, like all of these are like very easy with this newfound freedom we have to like slip into. And so out of a place of these questions, I saw my friends making bad decisions they were leading to like pain and suffering, which were leading to worse decisions, which were leading to deeper pain and suffering, in an attempt to find something true and real that they can invest in that even answer these like deep questions about themselves. And I realized like I came into college with significantly worse intentions than like a majority of the people I met. However, like the only difference in my life was this small group of people that were like dragging me towards Jesus in this relationship with Jesus that I was forming. Like this is what looked different in my life than anyone else's. And I was like, the Lord is like revealing brokenness in my heart and then healing and restoring it. And I'm getting to step into joy and freedom and like the fullness of life. And I realized like, no, I've lived my entire life over here and this is way better. And I don't know how to articulate exactly what's happening, but I know this is kind of where it's at. So I'm like, whoa, like I want to bring like everyone into this thing with me. You know, I start like relentlessly inviting people in my classes to come to this like small group to meet these people that are like legitimately pursuing Christ and like seeing like crazy change happening in their life. And I'm like, man, like this is the sweetest thing I've tasted. All I want to do is bring as many people into this thing with me, you know? And so even like I start telling everyone I can about Jesus. And so I'm a guy that's like spent his entire life like not knowing how to think about people, right? And then after like a semester and a half at school, I sit on the bus and like I'm like looking around the bus and like the Lord will highlight someone to me. And I know nothing about them, right? And so, but all of a sudden my heart breaks for them. And so I go over to them and sit down next to them and start sharing with them like who Jesus is and what he's done for them and what that means for the rest of their life, right? It's like this crazy change. And so I go from like not caring at all to like my heart totally breaking for like a stranger I've never met before. And it's like this crazy transformation, right? And so I feel like even that semester, the Lord took all this like insecurity and selfishness that are like even determined a vast majority of the decisions I make, like dominated my life. He took all of that off of me, like cast it off and replaced in me like his heart for people. And it was like phenomenal. And like the question shifted from what can I get to like what have I received that I can give? Like how can I help love and meet the needs of people around me? You know, it's like this crazy transformation. So like I started burning for the Lord. Going into my sophomore year, like the Lord had started a fire my freshman year that he just kept adding and adding and adding to. And so going into my sophomore year, this fire was so like powerful inside. It was like this overwhelming thing. Like earlier, I don't remember who said this, but they talked about like kind of like the like sawtooth Christianity, right? Like the roller coaster, like the mountains and the valleys, right? It's like I had heard about that my whole life, but it seemed like the Lord just kept like, it was like this like steady increase instead of like this up and down, you know? And like, it's like so much so that it was like overwhelming me. And I feel like it was even just from this place of like consistency. And so, yeah, whoever was talking about that earlier mentioned like let's take this high and like apply it to the rest of your life. And so like, that's what I was seeing the people in the small group around doing. And so I like was able to start doing that. And like, it's just like this awesome thing. It's like full application, right? So going into my sophomore year, I'm like burning. This thing will like not leave me alone. I'm like in my studio, right, in architecture, putting together like a model home that I had designed. And as I'm putting this thing together, I feel like the Lord speaks to me and says like, Andrew, what if I didn't make you to build earthly homes, but what if I made you to help establish eternal dwellings? And I was like, oh, like that pierced my heart. And I was like, God, like, man, I think it's exactly what you made me to do, you know? And so I was like, man, I'm in, God. Like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, you should consider like going on staff for your church. And I was like, okay, like I will, you know? So my sophomore, junior, and senior year, and just even like kept pressing into the Lord and even testing, like, man, are you sure that you want me to go on staff for this church? Like, what does that even look like? So I started taking leadership roles, and even the whole time the Lord keeps like refining and transforming my character and confirming like every step of the way, this is like exactly where I want you to go. And I was like, all right, man, like I'll do it. And so kind of what that looks like is like really, really awesome. There's like a crazy amount of need at college campuses. So you can go ahead and go to the next one. So this is what our church looks like. This is an average Sunday for Fellowship Church. We meet at the gymnasium at like Brazos Christian School, which is a nearby private school, which is really awesome. We have like really, really powerful worship services and stuff like that. So it's really cool. But you can go and go to the next one now. So this is kind of what it looks like for us to do stuff like as a home group. We do a bunch of crazy stuff. It's college. We have a lot of fun. And really it's like this idea like what our church does is kind of like this like full life integration, right? Of like, man, we're gonna really like do life together and pursue the Lord together as a group and like run after him, you know? And so the reality is though, like Pastor said this, I think he even said to me earlier, like 78%, like over 70% for sure of students like totally walk away from the Lord after they leave. And it's like, well, why does that happen, you know? So I think, and this is what even, the Lord has like spoken to me a good amount like about like my generation and like the generation coming up after me is like, we really long for something true and real for ourselves. And so there's this kind of thing of like, well, a lot of people are walking away, but it's only because they don't want to choose what their parents have just because their parents had it, but they want something to be real for themselves. And so it's like, we see a lot of people walking away now, but the Lord is like really put on my heart is like, no, but whenever people really discover the Lord, like they're all in because it's like, this is like their thing and they've like totally found it for themselves. And so they're jumping in, right? And so of like the 68,000 students that are at A&M, which is like a crazy number, we're like the number 2 biggest university in the nation and we're trying to be number 1 by 2020. It's crazy. They're always building our campus. It's like ridiculous expansion. It's like out of like 68,000 students, our pastor estimates that out of like all of the Christian outreach efforts that are like all over campus, maybe 25% of the student body is actually getting ministered to, maybe 25%, which means there's like 40,000 students that are longing, like more than that actually, that are longing for something real and powerful, even because they're like created with this thing inside of them, right, to really long for that. And it's like, but like who is gonna like go and touch their lives and like be a part of that, you know? So you can go to the next one. Yeah. So like really awesome home group stuff. It's crazy. The blue stuff, that's me and Sheldon. So I don't know if you have a Blue Baker here, but Blue Baker gives away free food if you paint yourself blue. And so we have 3 Blue Bakers in College Station, which means I can get 3 free pizzas in one night if I paint my entire body blue. So that's like a pretty sweet deal. It's like $1 of paint, you know? It's like, that's awesome. So we do that pretty often. It's a good way to get free food. College students are all about that. You can go ahead and go to the next one. Yeah, so let me see. What does even God want me to say kind of about this? So this is my vision for going into ministry at A&M. This is my vision for reaching college students. The quality of students that enter into A&M are like really top notch. Like A&M, you have students that are going to come in and overall end up being successful with their lives because of the way they've like decided to position their lives and like their work ethic and like their intelligence. Like all these things have set them up for success. So they end up at A&M and overall the trajectory of their life tends towards like a good amount of success, right? So you have like really quality students. In addition to that, you have the prestige of the Aggie degree, which if there's Longhorns in here, there might be some disagreement with that, but that's okay. Y'all can, you got freedom. You don't have to agree with me. And then, but then there's also like the Aggie network, which is kind of where like the cult of A&M comes in, right? It's like a positive cult. It's a good thing. It means that like whenever students graduate from A&M, there are employers all over the world, legitimately like this worldwide network of like Aggies that just want to hire Aggies. And so it's like this awesome fast track to leadership for students that graduate out of A&M. So like in 10 to 15 years, legitimately students that are graduating right now are going to be leading fields and industries around the world. So what if when students come to A&M for the 4 to 5 years or 6 years that they are getting their degree to become equipped overall to like go be successful in the world, what if at the same time they're getting touched with the love of God so powerfully that the entire like trajectory of their life shifts to not being about them, but about like really like spreading the kingdom and like really loving people well, right? It's like, what would happen? Because then you have people entering the workforce and like loving the people around them and working not so they can make money and like be important, but to really take care of the people around them. And then as they're getting promoted, they have more ability to take care of people and make change and being promoted and being promoted. And so all of a sudden you've got Aggies that are at the tops of all of these like industries and fields that legitimately have the ability to make incredible change into like the way our society actually functions. And they're like doing that with the sake of the gospel. So the love of Christ is trickling into all the behind the scenes of what makes our society. And then like our day-to-day lives are legitimately transformed with the love of Christ. It's like phenomenal. Like this is right at the tips of our fingers at A&M. It's amazing. So that's why I'm going. It's like, I feel like if we can raise up leaders for the kingdom of God, like the transformation is going to be ridiculous. You can go ahead and go to the next one. Yeah, perfect. So the way our church kind of focuses on this is like really, really awesome. So our church, whenever the pastors, like planning our church like 32 years ago, different pastors now, obviously, it was like kind of anyways, but it's a long time. So they're like, oh, this is a campus-focused church. We want to be about college students. We'll start a small group. This will be awesome. Well, the small group grew from like 5 to 10 people to 30 pretty quick. And like 30 is not a small group anymore. And it doesn't even fit in like a dorm or an apartment. Super not functional. So like we'll just make it 2 groups of 15. Well, those 2 groups of 15 then grew to 30 as well. And they're like, well, dang it, now we got to multiply it out to 4 groups of 15. So when it multiplied out, they're like, wait, like what if we really have something here? What if we invested all of our time and focus and energy into making these small groups as powerful and authentic and centered on the love of Christ? Like what would happen? And so they did it. So 30 years later, our church has like about 30 small groups, which reach like 500 to 600 students every week, which is like phenomenal. But there's this crazy thing. We actually have more people in our small groups than in our Sunday service. We have like 500 to 600 in our small groups and like 300 to 400 in our Sunday service. Like, why is that? So I believe that the love of God, the gospel, is the most attractive thing. And so in our small groups, there's such an opportunity for that. There's even like this, like, it's like this kind of like, this like, how do you even want to word it? It's like you enter into like a home group, you come and you're like, dude, I don't know what's going on, but there's something here that's like drawing me, right? And so we see people that are like atheists or agnostic or like Muslim or Hindu or like super hurt by the church being drawn into our small groups, being drawn into this powerful community that just keep coming and keep coming back. And sometimes you're like, man, I don't know why this person's still coming, but they are. Like, this is awesome, you know? And after a semester or a year, they clicks and it's like, oh my gosh, like Jesus is real. And like exactly like my story, it's like this is a really common thing, you know? It's like people's lives are totally transformed by how real the love of Christ is, you know? And so the way we structure our small groups is really big into that of like having a lot of space for authenticity and vulnerability. But then our goal, even within our small groups, is that every person that comes gets met up with by like a leader in that home group each week. So you're building these like powerful, authentic relationships just like one-on-one. And most of the time, this is like pretty true for me and it's true for a lot of people as well. Most of the time, these are like the first like real and authentic relationships these people like ever experience because those aren't like super common, you know? And so when you put all these like powerful relationships together in one place, there's this buzz. And so people come and they're like, oh my gosh, like, dude, like these people are really excited and they love each other. This is amazing, you know? And like that's where transformation really, really happens. So you can go to the next slide. This is actually my friend Sean. He's like even like a really big yes. So pretty quickly, I'll tell you his story. But he grew up in an awesome Christian family. But then halfway through his senior year of high school, his older brother committed suicide, which is like a really intense and heavy thing. And it's like even like families, you don't think about the day this is going to happen to your kid, right? And so it like his family like kind of like broke apart. And it's like the weight of this thing was on them, and they didn't know like how to like navigate this super well. And so Sean even came in to his freshman year with kind of this burden of like his brother's suicide on his mind, and like a lot of questions for God of like, how can you be good and this happen, and like where are you at in this? So it's like super intense. So like even this like one thing usually breaks people, but like in addition to that, Sean also joined like the like engineering program at A&M, which is probably the most intense major at A&M, and that alone breaks people. And then on top of that, he's also in the Corps of Cadets at A&M, which is like a really intense program that like legitimately kind of treat you like you're not human your freshman year to really break you down so they can build you up and shape you and mold you as a leader that will be really successful long term. But that first year is just crazy hard. So he's got these 3 super heavy burdens walking with him his entire freshman year. And so a lot of doubt and a lot of depression. And he goes to church every now and then, but it's like a spiritual pick-me-up. You know, there's not like sustenance and like substance to like his like experience with God, his relationship with God. So I meet him his freshman year. And we like have the same class together on the West Campus, so we start walking back to main campus together like 3 times a week. I start inviting him to a home group, and then we start hanging out, kind of like one-on-one outside of home group, right? Starting discipleship. And like 2 weeks into knowing Sean, he just like spilled his entire life before me as if he was just waiting for someone that he could kind of trust to bring into this, you know? And I have no idea like how to walk through like suicide. Like I can handle school and the core, like I can navigate these things pretty well, but I've never even like dealt with like this whole like topic of like suicide. And so in the moment, I'm like, Lord, like what do you want me to say to this guy? And I feel like God like doesn't say anything. It's like radio silence. And I was like, dang, like, I was like, Sean, like, man, the only thing I can think to do in this moment is like mourn the loss of your brother and like cry with you. He's like, is it okay if we do that? And he's like, oh, yeah. And so the first year of me and Sean knowing each other, legitimately, we would like cry and like mourn the loss of his brother and like acknowledge how painful it was and how we really didn't even have answers for like a majority of like the questions that we had kind of in response to this. But in this process, even like I'm just like entering in with this guy and walking through this. I have no vision for what I'm doing. I've got no idea, but I know that I care about him and he's in pain, so I want to be in that place with him. And so like as we're walking like through this over the course of this year, I start seeing glimpses of like joy and life and hope returning to Sean's life. And it's like, whoa, that's like pretty cool, you know? So going into his junior year, I asked him to start coming on campus with me and like praying for people. So we would go on campus and we would pray for people every Friday for like 2 to 4 hours. And we actually got to, this is awesome, we got to meet with this guy named Wyatt and like hear his story and like share ours and then share the gospel with him and walk him through that entire process and then walk through the process, like praying to receive Christ, like what that really meant. And so we got to be like a part of the whole thing, you know? And like Sean had never like walked someone through the gospel and seen them like pray to receive Christ. And so it was like this really envisioning thing for Sean. So he was like, whoa, like, dude, like I get it. Like I get the point of the kingdom. I get the point of like this gospel is like to like really love people well and enter into their pain and like help walk through them with it. And so Sean started like running with it, right? He's invited me to come on campus, like pray for people now. It's like totally flip-flopped. And so I graduated in May. And so Sean is like stepped in and is now like leading like in our home group. And he's like discipling like freshmen and bringing these freshmen with him on campus to go and pray for people now. So it's like this awesome like transformation, right? And even because of the pain that Sean has been through, he's able to enter into pain and suffering with people like I will never be able to. It's like phenomenal, right? And so he even really has a heart to go to the most painful and most like broken places in the world and bring like justice and like love there. And so he's even considering going into full-time missionary work with like sex trafficking. So it's like this phenomenal thing of like, dude, like I did not do like anything in this process. I didn't give him some like awesome like word from the Lord or anything. Like I just walked with this guy's life through him and like the Lord like transformed it. It's like, man, there's so many like broken people on campus that are like longing for the Lord. Like I was one of them. And it's like, dude, if God can grab a hold of my heart, like he can grab a hold of anyone's, you know? So going on staff, kind of what it looks like is I'll be meeting the time needs of our church. We'll like maximizing the opportunity. That's at A&M, at A&M. So if our church is all about like community and like life on life, then there's like a great need for people just to like that are just willing to give up like their full-time schedules to really invest in the college students. And so I'll be doing a lot of campus outreach. I'll be able to disciple 7 to 10 guys sustainably, which is phenomenal. So our church's vision is that we make disciples that go and make disciples, right? And so if I'm able to disciple 7 to 10 guys each year for like 5 to 10 years, and each of those guys go and disciple 2 to 3 guys, and they go and disciple 2 to 3 guys, like I haven't run the numbers on this, but after like 10 years, like legitimately like hundreds of lives, if not in like the teens of hundreds, like could totally be touched and transformed just in like 10 years. And it's like, that's phenomenal. And it's like, that's how we're going to effectively reach like A&M's campus, like one person at a time, like legitimately, like it's so, so powerful. And then I'll also be helping to lead a home group in our church, but even our home groups are like student led, right? And so my role in that, I think, is for me to almost like equip and coach like the leaders, but even like step back and let them like try like leadership and try things that they think will work and like really even gain the skill and have this space to fail even like allow them to like soften the blow and like catch them and like bring them back and keep coaching them and encouraging them so that they actually really get to develop these skills and they get to go out into the real world once they graduate and apply these skills and keep replicating the kingdom of God, hopefully for the rest of their lives. It's like this incredible thing that we get to tap into. It's amazing. Let me see. Yes. So the second big need that'll be helping to meet with our church is like finances, right? So helping to meet the need of the church isn't the best way to put it, but more like I won't be burdening the church any more than it is at this point. So I'm going to be like a fully supported like missionary at Texas A&M. And so I'll be partnering with a mission sending agency called Reliant, which has sent out like missionaries for the past 30 years and sends out missionaries like 600 missionaries worldwide right now. It's really awesome. Even I'll be able to have like 401k and short and long-term disability and like insurance. So I'll be like a legitimate employee. I'll be able to like legitimately take care and provide for my family, which is like awesome and like kind of a new thing with being a husband, right? It's like I have to really think about this thing. Yeah, the support raising is an interesting thing because you get to talk to people about God and money, which are like the two most controversial subjects in the world. If I like threw politics in there, like I had someone tell me this. He's like, dude, if you talked about politics too, you'd probably get into a fight every meeting. And I was like, okay, I'll make sure to totally avoid that. The Lord has spared me a lot of fights, so I'll just not keep counting on him to anyways. But that God didn't punch me, so it's like, all right, God had grace in me, let's not like tempt the Lord. So yeah, I've been praying for the past 3 years about what it looks like to support raise effectively, and I feel like the Lord has told me, like, Andrew, what if support raising wasn't about raising finances, but what if it was about building relationships with people and then casting vision and excitement for what you're doing and then opening the door and allowing them to come into that and be a part of it how they're able, right? So it's like, oh, that's like really sweet, and there's not like this weird like grossness that I've seen kind of in this process. Like, oh, I think this is like God's heart in this, at least for me. And so what that looks like with like building relationships, right, is there's two things like on my heart that I want to like ask you guys to like consider praying about. Currently, I don't have like a home sending church. So I was hoping that y'all would pray about being a home sending church, and kind of what that looks like is that we get to like continue building a relationship together. And I'm not exactly sure what that looks like, right? Like I'm pretty new to this, right? So I'm like, man, I'm pretty open to what that looks like. But even that y'all would be like frequently like, keeping me in your prayers and vice versa, right? And then also that even like y'all would pray about like supporting me as like a church, like with an amount like monthly. So I'm kind of raising like monthly recurring gifts. So that's like one of the things that was on my heart. The other, and like this is really about like building relationships. It has to be, it has to be. And so the other thing that I was going to even ask that y'all would pray for is if like maybe the church supports me monthly, like y'all support me as a church, but even if y'all would consider like supporting me like individually, because a big part of like my heart is to like get to know people on like an individual level and like connect with them, get to know them, like be able to walk through their life with them and really encourage them with where I'm at. And even people drop in ministry like flies, right? And so if there is any way to build in longevity into what I'm doing, I think it looks like building like really effective and powerful relationships now, so that whenever I get tired and discouraged later, because it will probably happen, I have people that I can fall back on that are like, you know what, like, dude, this is why you're doing this. And like, we're with you in this thing. We've been with you this whole time. And like get back out there, And so yeah, yeah, asking for money is like hard, and like talking about money is really hard. And so yeah, y'all just have a lot of grace in me. So I have to raise, I have $3,500 left to raise, and I'm hoping to raise that by January, which would be like crazy fast. But even my vision behind that is like, it can take some people like 8 months to a year to raise support. It's like, man, like maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's like really bold. Like there's something about young people thinking they can change the world that like actually makes it possible, right? So maybe this is one of those things where it's like, maybe you're just overshooting a little bit. I'm a zealous guy, so I don't know. But yeah, I'm hoping to be done by January so I can start off this next coming semester in the full swing of ministry. Because even with college ministry, it's like the harvest is right at the beginning of the semester before everyone gets plugged into all these organizations and like all their homework starts, So if you can build effective relationships now, they kind of like carry throughout the semester. And so I would love to start the spring semester being fully supported and actually being able to do ministry. So kind of what that can look like is like $3,500 a month by January is like 7 people at $500 a month, which would be like crazy. Or like probably a little bit more realistic, like 35 people at $100 a month, or 70 people at like $50 a month, just to kind of crack out like numbers and cast a little bit of vision for what that looks like. But yeah, so yeah, if y'all will pray about that, I think I don't know exactly how you want to do this, Pastor. Maybe you can, I'll throw out my idea and then you can change it if you want once you come back up here. But I think me and my wife will be at the back. I've kind of got like a flyer that like talks about kind of what I do, and so y'all could grab that and even like talk a little bit more. I would love to meet if like y'all are interested in meeting, or you have questions, or like you just really want to know more. I would love to meet and answer those questions. But yeah, that's kind of all I've got. Let me think of a smooth wrap up. I don't have one. I'll just pray real fast and then get off the stage. Dear God, man, I even just pray, man, for a lot of grace with you. I thank you for allowing me to get a chance to come and like be a part of like this awesome church, this incredible worship. Like Holy Spirit, even like, man, I thank you that you're like really here, you're really present in this church, and it's obvious. Even God, I want to pray, like, man, if there's like what's of you, like would it get etched into stone? And Lord, like what's not of you would it like wash away with like the ocean and like the wind, God. And so like, yeah, allow like what I said that's of you to stick, and like everything I said that's not of you to like totally leave. Thank you, Father, in Jesus' name, amen.